In the quiet reaches of the Xerilon cluster, the alien worlds floated like gems in the velvet of space. Each planet shimmered with its own life. Crystalline cities, glowing oceans, and skies painted in colors that no human eye had yet seen. The coalition of 10 worlds had long maintained peace here, a network of civilizations connected by diplomacy, science, and trade. But peace, as the elders often warned, could be fragile. And on the remote planet of Varian 7, the first cracks in that peace had begun to show. It started with a signal, faint and desperate, drifting through the cold vacuum of space. The signal was unusual, not the usual structured communication that the coalition was used to. It was jagged, raw, and filled with urgency. Commander Talu, a tall, slender alien with translucent skin that glimmered faintly in the council chamber light, was the first to notice it. He hovered over the console, his many-fingered hands moving, swiftly across controls that translated the signal into images. "Sir," said an aide, voice quivering. "It comes from Varian 7. The readings, they're unlike anything we have recorded. The surface conditions are deteriorating rapidly." Talu's eyes, bright and reflective, narrowed. He had seen strange signals before, but none carried the tone of fear that this one did. He leaned closer, listening to the strange patterns that almost seemed to scream across the waves of space. "Alert the Council," Talu said. "Varian 7 is in danger." Within the hour, the Council of 10 Worlds convened. It was an unusual sight. Leaders of 10 diverse civilizations gathered in one place. Some floated above their chairs, others shifted their bodies into colors that reflected their emotions. But all faces, all forms, were tense. The Speaker of the Council, Elder Rymel, began. "We have received a distress signal from Varian 7. Preliminary scans show extreme environmental instability. Cities are collapsing. Storms of unusual force ravage the land. The planet's inhabitants cannot manage this alone." A murmur spread through the chamber. The coalition was strong, but Varian 7 was remote, nearly forgotten until now. Its inhabitants were advanced, yes, but their physiology was fragile. Even minor environmental hazards could become deadly. "How soon can we send aid?" asked a counselor from the water world of Nerith, her voice bubbling with worry. Talu spoke. "Next. Our fleets are prepared, but this is not a normal crisis. The readings suggest forces beyond natural disasters. Varian 7 is experiencing simultaneous tectonic shifts, atmospheric instability, and something we cannot yet classify." A young scientist, Terran, stepped forward, projecting holograms of the planet's surface. "Look here," she said, pointing to a series of red blots on the map. "These zones are active with seismic energy. Entire cities could be swallowed in hours, and this," she gestured to a swirling cloud pattern, "is not typical weather. It moves with intelligence as if guided." The council fell silent. Intelligent storms, environmental collapse on a massive scale. "And the inhabitants?" asked Elder Rymel. "Are they capable of self-rescue?" Terran shook her head. "Some are trapped. Many cannot survive without immediate aid. If help does not arrive soon..." Her voice trailed off, leaving the implication hanging in the air like smoke. The chamber buzzed with worry. The aliens had never faced a threat like this, an enemy not of war, but of nature and mystery combined. Some counselors proposed sending ships immediately. Others hesitated, concerned about the safety of their fleets and the limits of their technology. Talu listened to all arguments. He knew hesitation could cost lives. He thought back to the countless times his species had trained for disasters, simulations of what should never happen. None had prepared them for this. And yet, hope lay in action. "Prepare the rescue fleet," he said finally. "We will depart at once. Every ship, every crew, every capable hand. Varian 7 will not fall while we can act." Orders spread quickly. Ships were mobilized, crews briefed, and routes calculated. Still, Talu could not shake the feeling that even their combined fleets might be insufficient. The readings suggested a scale of danger beyond their comprehension. As the first vessels approached Varian 7, the true scope of the disaster came into view. Cities once shining like jewels were now half buried in sand and debris. Storms whipped across the surface, their winds twisting buildings like paper. Mountains groaned and cracked, sending avalanches of rock down into valleys where entire communities had lived. The aliens' rescue teams moved carefully, trying to stabilize structures, lift debris, and assist the trapped. But every moment brought new challenges. The planet seemed alive in its chaos, reacting to every intervention. And then, from the edge of the sensors came a new reading, something large, fast-moving, and deliberately approaching the planet's surface. The alien crews paused, scanning. The object did not respond to normal identification protocols. It was not a fleet of the Coalition. Talu's heart, if such a thing could be said of his species, skipped. "Identify," he ordered, voice tense. The image solidified. Ships unlike anything they had seen before, rugged and unpolished, designed more for endurance than beauty or speed. Their surfaces were scarred and functional, not sleek or artistic like alien vessels. And yet they moved with purpose, descending through storms as if the planet itself offered no resistance. The Council's communicators buzzed with questions. "Who are they? Why are they coming here?" Talu said nothing at first, watching the screens. Then he whispered almost to himself, "They are Deathworlders." A collective gasp filled the room. Deathworlders were a species spoken of in cautionary tales, a human people whose homeworld was a relentless, deadly planet. They thrived where others would perish. Their resilience was legendary, bordering on myth for most alien civilizations. "They come from shadows of death and danger," Talu continued, voice calm but resolute. "And yet, they arrive now, when all hope seems lost." The counselors stared at the screens, unsure whether to hope or fear. Stories of Deathworlders described their toughness, their ability to endure impossible conditions, and their unpredictable nature. Some feared them as mercenaries, others as saviors who worked without concern for their own safety. The humans touched down without hesitation. Storms lashed at their ships, debris fell like rain, and yet they moved forward, calm, efficient, and unafraid. Alien crews watched from their safer vantage points, stunned. Talu stepped closer to the hologram, studying the humans' approach. Something about them seemed different, not just resilient, but purposeful. They were not simply surviving the planet. They were mastering it in ways the aliens could barely understand. "They are our allies today," he said finally. "But they are also a mystery. We will learn from them, and perhaps they will teach us what it truly means to endure." As the first human teams touched the ground, lifting rubble, securing buildings, and assisting the trapped, the aliens could not help but feel a mixture of awe and humility. These beings, forged in danger, had emerged from the shadows to answer a call that others could not. And for the first time in many cycles, hope did not feel fragile. It felt alive. High above, the storms of Varian 7 continued to rage, but on the ground, life was being saved. And somewhere in the chaos, a new story was beginning. A story of humans who thrived where others would fall, and of aliens who were about to discover that courage, ingenuity, and resilience were far more powerful than any technology they had ever known. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath, watching as the Deathworlders stepped into the chaos, unafraid, unstoppable, and ready to change the destiny of a planet that had cried for help. The alien crews of the Coalition watched with wide eyes as the Deathworlders' ships landed on Varian 7. Unlike the elegant, glimmering vessels of the aliens, these ships were rough, angular, and built for survival rather than beauty. Yet, there was no mistaking their efficiency. Each ship descended with careful precision, slicing through storms that had crushed alien crafts. On the ground, the humans stepped out. They were tall, strong, and built for the harshest environments. Their eyes scanned the chaos calmly, analyzing the crumbling cities, the twisted roads, and the terrified inhabitants. They moved like predators who had learned patience, assessing danger before acting, yet never hesitating when action was needed. Commander Talu and a small delegation of aliens approached cautiously. They were unsure what to expect. Legends of humans, Deathworlders, spoke of brutality and recklessness, but what they saw now was something different. The humans were not violent. They were methodical, focused entirely on rescue. A human stepped forward, his voice surprisingly calm as it translated through the alien communicators. "We are here to help. Show us where you need us most." Talu felt a mixture of relief and awe. These were not conquerors. These were saviors, coming from a planet where danger was life itself. "The city of Kiril is the worst," he replied. "Buildings have collapsed. Many are trapped. The storms are strongest there." Without hesitation, the humans split into teams, each carrying tools and devices that seemed simple but were perfectly suited for the disaster. They did not rely on heavy machinery. Instead, they used lightweight, durable devices and clever mechanisms to stabilize rubble and lift debris. The aliens watched in amazement. One team of humans approached a partially collapsed building. Without pause, they attached simple cables to the structure, using pulleys and levers to lift massive sections safely. Talu and his engineers had studied physics and engineering all their lives. Yet even they could not understand the ease with which humans performed such feats. A young alien scientist, Terran, whispered, "They move as if the world obeys them. They are not afraid of anything here." Talu nodded, his eyes fixed on the humans. "That is because they have faced worse and survived. That is their strength." As the teams worked, they coordinated efficiently. One group rescued trapped inhabitants, while another stabilized buildings. Children were carried from wreckage, elderly aliens guided to safety, and animals freed from debris. The humans worked together silently, communicating with gestures and brief commands. There was no confusion, no hesitation. The aliens began to see their limitations. Many of their technology-dependent rescue methods failed under the harsh conditions. Hover vehicles could not stay steady in the storms. Protective, suits cracked under pressure. But the humans adapted instantly, using their bodies, clever devices, and natural instincts to overcome every obstacle. Talu observed one human lifting a massive slab of stone that would have crushed an alien. The human's muscles flexed, but his face remained calm, almost serene. He gently removed the rubble, revealing a trapped family inside. Talu felt a pang of admiration mixed with disbelief. "They do not rely on machines alone," Terran said. "They rely on themselves." As the hours passed, a strange bond began to form. Aliens who had only watched now joined the humans, learning to stabilize walls, carry debris safely, and navigate dangerous terrain. The Deathworlders did not scold or order them. They guided by example, letting the aliens find their own courage. Yet even as the rescue progressed, the planet's fury did not relent. Storms shifted unpredictably, and seismic tremors shook the ground without warning. Entire streets sank into fissures. Alien technology that had seemed advanced moments ago now failed under these extreme conditions. A counselor from Nerith, her watery body shimmering with anxiety, said, "Even with them here, the planet is stronger than us." Talu nodded slowly. "Strength is not always in numbers or tools. Watch and learn." Indeed, the humans demonstrated a remarkable ability to anticipate danger. One human noticed a fissure widening beneath a building and quickly directed aliens. to move civilians to safety. Another built an improvised bridge to cross a chasm, allowing a rescue team to continue their work. Each action was simple, yet perfectly effective. The aliens began to understand something profound. The humans' power lay not in technology alone, but in their ability to endure, adapt, and innovate under pressure. Their very presence seemed to change the way others approached danger. Fear was replaced by determination. Hesitation turned into action. In one particularly dramatic moment, a massive storm funnel struck the city of Kirill. Aliens froze, unsure how to protect themselves. But the humans acted immediately, anchoring temporary shelters, guiding citizens to secure areas, and even using their own bodies to shield the vulnerable from flying debris. When the storm passed, not a single life was lost under their care. Talu turned to the counselor. This is why they are called Deathworlders. They are forged by danger, and danger fears them less than it fears us. By evening, the humans had saved countless lives and stabilized key areas. Aliens tentatively approached them, offering assistance and sharing their own knowledge. The Deathworlders accepted help but continued to lead with their calm authority, showing what could be achieved when fear was set aside. Talu noticed the children of Varion 7 watching the humans. Their wide eyes reflected awe and wonder. One small alien whispered to another, "They are like the heroes in the old stories, but they are real." Indeed, the humans seemed almost mythical. They did not boast. They did not demand praise. They simply acted, and their actions spoke louder than any words. The Council sent a message across the coalition. Humans have arrived. They are unlike any ally we have known. Watch and learn. Hope is here. That night, as the storm finally eased, Talu walked among the humans. They were gathering supplies, checking equipment, and planning the next day's operations. He noticed their eyes, steady, alert, yet calm. They were ready for anything, not because they were fearless, but because they had faced worse and survived. 1. Human, noticing Talu watching, spoke through the translator. "We rest when we can. Tomorrow we continue. There are more to save." Talu nodded. "And you will save them. Not just with tools, but with your courage. That is what the Coalition has never seen before." The humans did not answer with words. Instead, one of them gave a brief nod and returned to organizing the rescue operations. It was a simple gesture, but Talu understood it perfectly. They did not need to boast. Their actions were proof enough. Throughout the night, the aliens and humans worked side by side. Fires were put out, shelters reinforced, and injured cared for. Slowly, the city of Kirill transformed from a place of fear and chaos to a place of hope. By morning, the skies of Varion 7 had cleared, revealing a battered but resilient world. The aliens began to whisper among themselves, not of fear, but of admiration. "They are incredible," Terran said softly. "I thought we were advanced, but they thrive where we struggle." Talu looked at the humans, still moving tirelessly. "They are a reminder that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes the greatest strength is simply the ability to endure, adapt, and act when others cannot." Word spread quickly across the coalition. Messages of hope, admiration, and curiosity went out to distant worlds. The Deathworlders were no longer just legends. They were here, real and extraordinary, showing what it truly meant to survive and to help others survive. As the sun rose over the battered city, Talu felt a quiet certainty. The humans had arrived not just to save lives, but to inspire a new way of thinking. They had shown that courage, ingenuity, and resilience could overcome the impossible. And somewhere deep in the shadows of Varion 7's mountains, more challenges awaited. The humans did not flinch. They moved toward them with calm determination, ready to face whatever the planet could throw. The aliens watched, learning, growing, and beginning to understand that a species forged by death itself could illuminate the path to hope in the darkest of times. Varian 7 had called for help, and the Death Worlders had answered not with words, not with grand speeches, but with action, courage, and unshakable resolve. The planet of Varian 7 was alive in its fury. Even as the sun rose over the battered city of Kirill, the ground trembled with restless energy. Mountains groaned, rivers surged with strange currents, and the air still carried the electric tang of lingering storms. For the aliens of the coalition, every step outside their shelters was a calculated risk. For the humans, Death Worlders, it was another day to act. Commander Talu watched from a ridge overlooking the city. Below, the humans moved like shadows of certainty. Each team split into smaller groups, heading toward the most dangerous zones. Lands where buildings had completely collapsed, where fissures yawned like teeth in the earth, and where the storms showed no mercy. "Do they fear anything?" whispered Terran, her voice trembling. She had followed the humans closely for hours, and yet had never seen hesitation. Talu shook his head slowly. "Fear is not absent. They feel it, but it does not stop them. That is the difference." The first challenge lay in the Eastern District, where a massive quake had turned streets into cliffs and deep cracks. Alien engineers had attempted to create bridges with levitation platforms, but the unstable ground made them unsafe. The humans assessed the terrain quickly, touching the earth, scanning the cracks, and exchanging brief hand signals. Without machinery, they began constructing improvised pathways. Using heavy cables, flexible planks, and simple levers, they built bridges across gaps that would have swallowed alien vehicles. Talu's engineers watched, dumbfounded. Their advanced calculations had failed, yet the humans succeeded using what seemed like sheer instinct. A human crouched by a fissure, inspecting the ground. He noticed a section shifting dangerously. Without hesitation, he signaled his team and began securing it with anchors driven deep into rock. Another human passed weighted ropes to reinforce the structure. In minutes, a shaky but solid path allowed trapped civilians to cross to safety. Terran turned to Talu. "They do not even slow down. One misstep could kill them." "They know how to survive," Talu replied quietly. "They have been trained by worlds that would kill ordinary beings. Danger is familiar to them." The aliens began to follow, mimicking their methods. With guidance, they learned to move with care, to use the environment instead of fearing it. By the end of the morning, dozens of trapped aliens had crossed fissures that no technology could have saved them from. Meanwhile, in the Northern District, another team of humans faced collapsing buildings. Entire walls had crumbled, and debris threatened to bury anyone who approached. The humans split into pairs, each lifting enormous slabs of rock and twisted metal, coordinating silently. They carried the injured, reinforced, unstable structures and improvised supports faster than alien engineers could calculate. A young alien girl, hiding behind a collapsed building, watched with wide eyes. "They are like gods," she whispered. Her father pulled her back, shaking his head. "No, they are like us, but stronger, braver." Even the coalition's medics were impressed. The humans did not just rescue. They stabilized, treated injuries, and prepared survivors to continue. Moving. They seemed to anticipate dangers before they appeared, always one step ahead. In the heart of the city, a storm still raged. Winds ripped through broken streets, carrying debris that could impale or crush. Aliens faltered, forced back by the intensity. Yet the humans advanced, using their bodies, ropes, and structures to shield those in danger. They seemed impervious to exhaustion, unharmed by conditions that would have incapacitated alien crews. Talu realized that the humans' true strength was not physical alone, it was psychological. They remained calm, focused, and unafraid even when everything around them fell apart. Their resilience was infectious. The aliens watching began to feel a strange courage, a spark of determination ignited by seeing someone else thrive under impossible conditions. By afternoon, the humans had reached the outskirts of the worst disaster zones, villages buried in mudslides and quagmires, mountains threatening to collapse, and rivers swollen beyond imagination. Normally, such regions would be abandoned as too dangerous, yet the humans moved forward, scouting the paths, testing for stability, and rescuing every life they could reach. One team came across a partially submerged city. Buildings had cracked and tilted. Water poured through broken streets, threatening to wash away anyone left behind. The humans worked quickly, setting up makeshift dams, directing the water flow and using sturdy planks and ropes to ferry trapped civilians to dry ground. An alien engineer shook his head in disbelief. "We would have lost half the city already. They are rewriting what is possible." Talu nodded, eyes fixed on the human team leader. "They do not see limits, and in that, they teach us courage without words." That evening, after hours of ceaseless work, the humans paused briefly. Even they were not infinite in stamina. But unlike aliens, their rest was short, measured, and purposeful. They reviewed plans for the next day, discussed terrain, and ensured all rescued were safe. The aliens were exhausted, yet they could not sleep easily. They gathered around, asking questions, observing every motion, trying to understand what made these humans different. "They do not panic," said Terran. "They adapt instantly. They see danger as something to manage, not something to avoid." Talu placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "That is their way. On their home world, survival is constant. Their minds and bodies are trained to endure what we cannot imagine, observe and learn. That is the lesson." During the night, a tremor shook the ground. Rocks tumbled and debris threatened to crush sleeping aliens. Yet without hesitation, the humans moved. They alerted nearby survivors, reinforced shelters, and even carried those trapped back to safety. The aliens watched, hearts pounding. For the first time, they felt a mix of fear and awe, not for the humans' power, but for the sheer audacity of their endurance. Talu spoke quietly to his aides. "This is more than rescue. They are teaching us courage, patience, and hope. They show that even in the face of disaster, action can overcome fear." The following day brought a new trial. A massive quake shattered the central plateau, sending boulders and debris into a valley filled with alien families. The humans arrived swiftly, assessing paths and removing obstacles with skill born of experience. They coordinated without discussion, moving like a single organism. One human lifted a boulder heavier than any alien could manage. He carried it aside, exposing trapped creatures beneath. Another guided a group of young aliens along a narrow path, balancing them with ropes and boards. The valley was a death trap for anyone unprepared, yet the humans crossed it effortlessly, and every life was saved. Talu could not contain his admiration. "This is the human way," he murmured. "Adapt, endure, act. Nothing stops them. Not storm, not quake, not fear itself." By the evening, Varion 7 was still battered, but hope glimmered. Countless lives had been saved, buildings stabilized, and the deadliest areas cleared. The humans, though tired, continued to move, checking for survivors, improvising solutions, and showing no sign of despair. The aliens began to understand a deeper truth. Advanced technology alone could not overcome danger. Courage, ingenuity, and the ability to act under pressure were the true tools of survival. And the humans had them in abundance. As the sun set over the valley, the aliens gathered on a ridge. They watched the humans at work, lifting debris, guiding citizens, and preparing for the next day's challenges. Children stared with wonder, adults with awe, and Talu with profound respect. "They are extraordinary," whispered Terran. "I never believed a species could do so much with just their hands, their minds, and their courage." Talu nodded. Eyes on the horizon where the mountains still threatened to crumble. "They are extraordinary, yes, but remember, what we witness here is more than strength. It is resilience, purpose, and selflessness. That is the power we should carry forward." High above, the planet itself seemed to acknowledge their efforts. The storms eased, the quakes subsided, and a calm settled over the landscape. It was not the end of danger, far from it, but for the first time, the aliens felt hope. The Deathworlders had passed the trial of survival. They had faced impossible odds, deadly terrain, and the fury of a planet unyielding, yet emerged not only unbroken, but victorious in their mission. And in doing so, they had taught the aliens a lesson no classroom or simulation could provide. Courage was born not of safety, but of endurance in the face of the impossible. As night fell, Talu looked once more at the humans. They were all ready, planning the next day, preparing for challenges the aliens could scarcely imagine. And yet, their calm confidence inspired a quiet truth. The humans were more than saviors. They were a force that could change the very understanding of what it meant to survive. Varian 7 had tested them, and they had passed. The aliens were witnesses to a strength that transcended species, a courage that would echo across worlds. And the Deathworlders, true to their nature, would continue to move forward, undaunted, relentless, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The storms had finally passed, leaving Varian 7's battered cities and villages under a quiet sky. But the planet was far from healed. Streets were scarred, buildings leaned precariously, and rivers still ran dangerously high. Yet amid the destruction, hope blossomed like fragile flowers pushing through rubble. The Deathworlders were already at work, not just rescuing, but teaching. Commander Talu walked alongside the humans as they moved through the city of Kirill. He observed how they interacted, not with arrogance, but with patient authority. Their presence encouraged the aliens to act, to try solutions they had once thought impossible. One human knelt beside a collapsed wall, showing an alien engineer how to create supports using simple levers and tensioned beams. Another guided a small group of aliens through a shaky bridge spanning a deep chasm. Each gesture, each demonstration, carried lessons that went beyond rescue. It was about adaptation, observation, and confidence. A young alien apprentice, Zira, approached Talu hesitantly. "Sir," she whispered, "how do they stay so calm, even when danger is all around?" Talu smiled faintly, watching a human team lift a massive slab of debris with nothing more than ropes and careful coordination. "They have learned to understand fear, not ignore it. They respect danger, but they refuse to let it control them." As the hours passed, the aliens began to participate actively. They lifted rubble, guided the injured, and reinforced structures under human supervision. Unlike the humans, many were hesitant at first, paralyzed by fear of making mistakes. But with each small success, confidence grew. In one central district, a building that had once been a school teetered on the edge of collapse. Alien engineers hesitated, uncertain how to stabilize it. A human stepped forward and began attaching improvised anchors to the structure. Without giving orders, he gestured to the aliens, inviting them to assist. Hesitant hands followed, and together, they stabilized the walls. "You see," Talu said to a nearby counselor, "they do not command. They show us the way, and we learn by following their example. That is how they teach courage." Meanwhile, the humans shared more than techniques. They shared ways of thinking. They encouraged the aliens to assess situations calmly, to observe patterns in nature and infrastructure, and to adapt strategies on the fly. For a species accustomed to relying heavily on advanced technology, these lessons were revolutionary. Taryn, the young scientist, tried her first improvised bridge, guided by a human steady hand. The ropes creaked, and the planks shifted dangerously, but she remembered the human's instruction. Trust the system, trust yourself, and adjust as needed. Step by careful step, she crossed, and on the other side, the human gave a brief nod. It was simple, but for Taryn, it felt like a triumph of mind over fear. Throughout the day, more lessons unfolded. Humans demonstrated how to stabilize buildings with minimal equipment, navigate treacherous terrain safely, and even predict the planet's dangerous shifts by observing subtle signs, cracks in stone, shifting clouds, or the behavior of water. 1. Humans sat with a group of alien children, showing them simple ways to protect themselves during quakes or sudden floods. The children's eyes sparkled as they imitated the motions, feeling capable in a way they never had before. Parents watched with gratitude, realizing that survival was not just about strength, it was about knowledge and awareness. Talu observed all this with a sense of awe. For centuries, his people had relied on technology and calculations, thinking that intelligence alone was enough. Yet here were humans, teaching resilience and courage in a way that no algorithm could replicate. Even the alien counselors, usually formal and cautious, began to participate. They learned to move with purpose, to adapt quickly, and to trust in both themselves and the humans' guidance. Fear slowly gave way to confidence. In the afternoon, the humans led a larger operation, the rescue and stabilization of a village near the northern cliffs. The terrain was perilous, with landslides and unstable ground threatening everyone. Alien crews had attempted the task before, but progress was slow and risky. The humans, working together, assessed the situation calmly. They split into teams, assigning tasks based on skill and necessity. They reinforced paths, secured loose rocks, and guided the villagers to safety. The aliens followed, applying the lessons learned, moving cautiously, observing carefully, and helping where needed. For the first time, Talu realized that the planet's danger was no longer paralyzing. The humans had transformed fear into action. The aliens felt empowered, capable of handling challenges they had once deemed insurmountable. As evening approached, the humans gathered the aliens to share one final lesson for the day: preparation. They demonstrated how to anticipate danger, organize resources, and plan rescue operations before disaster struck. The aliens watched intently, absorbing every word and gesture. A young alien counselor asked, "Do you always live like this, facing danger constantly?" One human smiled faintly. "Our world teaches us to survive. Danger is part of life. We do not fight it blindly. We learn, adapt, and act. That is why we can help others." The simplicity of the explanation struck Talu deeply. It was not bravery in the absence of fear, but bravery in the presence of knowledge, skill, and confidence. It was a lesson his people would carry forever. By nightfall, Varian 7 had transformed. The immediate danger was under control, structures were stabilized, and the aliens had learned skills they had never imagined. The humans rested briefly, always alert, always prepared, while the aliens tried to process the lessons of the day. Talu walked through the city with a young apprentice, showing her how humans had reinforced walls and guided citizens. "See?" he said softly. "Courage and skill are not born overnight. They are learned, practiced, and shared. That is why the humans are extraordinary. They teach, and in teaching they create strength in others." The apprentice nodded, inspired. "I think, I could do that too." I could help." "Yes," Talu said, smiling. "And tomorrow you will. Today we saw how humans turn fear into action. Tomorrow we act on our own." Even in their rest, the humans remained a quiet force. They checked equipment, observed the terrain, and prepared for the next challenges. Their humility was as striking as their strength. They did not demand praise, did not boast, and did not seek recognition. They acted simply because it was necessary, and through that, they inspired everyone around them. The aliens began to see a new path forward. They had relied on technology and rules for centuries, believing that intelligence alone could solve problems. Now they understood that adaptability, courage, and practical knowledge were equally vital. The humans had not only saved lives, they had changed the way the aliens viewed themselves and their capabilities. As the stars shone over the recovering planet, Talu reflected on the day's lessons. The humans were not just saviors, they were teachers, mentors, and catalysts for transformation. The Coalition would carry this knowledge far beyond Varian 7 into every world they touched. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the Deathworlders remained ready. The planet still held dangers, yet nothing seemed impossible when they were present. The aliens had learned more than survival. They had learned hope, resilience, and the extraordinary power of courage guided by knowledge. Talu looked at the humans quietly, acknowledging their silent leadership. They do not command, yet we follow. They do not boast, yet we are inspired. They do not fight for glory, yet they are heroes. That is the lesson we carry forward. The night passed in calm vigilance. The humans rested, but their presence remained a steady reassurance. The aliens felt for the first time that even a planet as deadly as Varian 7 could be faced with confidence. They had witnessed courage in its purest form, and it had changed them. By the morning, the aliens were ready to act with new skills and newfound confidence. They could stabilize buildings, navigate dangerous terrain, and assist in rescues. They had learned to see danger not as an insurmountable force, but as a challenge to meet with preparation, adaptability, and courage. The Deathworlders had come from shadows, answering a cry for help. And now, they had left behind something even more valuable: lessons beyond fear. The aliens would never forget it. Varian 7 was still scarred, still dangerous, but its people, both alien and human, were stronger than ever. The planet had tested them, and together they had learned that survival was not just about strength, speed, or technology. It was about knowledge, courage, and the will to act. The dawn broke over Varian 7 like a promise. The storms had passed, the ground had quieted, and a fragile peace settled over the battered cities. Yet the planet still bore scars. Twisted metal, crumbled buildings, and deep fissures marked the landscape. It was a dangerous world, but one no longer ruled by chaos. The humans, Deathworlders, moved through the streets with calm precision. Their presence had transformed the city of Kirill and surrounding areas. The aliens had learned from them, adapted alongside them, and discovered strength within themselves that had lain dormant. Commander Talu watched them quietly from a ridge. He had observed every action, every choice, every display of courage and ingenuity. Each human moved with purpose, assessing risks, guiding citizens, and preparing for what remained. Talu realized that their work was not simply to rescue. It was to teach resilience, to inspire courage, and to leave behind a legacy of hope. One human approached him, wiping dust from his hands. "We're nearly done here," he said simply. "The rest of the survivors are safe, and the worst danger zones are stabilized. But there is more to do." Talu nodded. "Yes, the planet will recover, but your lessons must remain. You have not just saved lives, you have shown what is possible when fear is met with courage." The human gave a brief nod and gestured toward the city. We leave strength behind, not just shelter or equipment. They can continue from here. Across the city, alien engineers and citizens worked alongside the Deathworlders, reinforcing buildings, clearing debris, and preparing for future quakes or storms. The aliens had learned to act decisively, to think on their feet, and to trust both themselves and each other. A young alien girl who had once trembled in fear during the first storms now moved confidently alongside a human team, carrying supplies and assisting the wounded. She glanced back at Talu, eyes shining with pride. "I can do this," she whispered. "I can help." Talu smiled, his heart swelling with hope. "Yes," he said softly, "and one day, you may teach others what you have learned here." The humans had not just saved lives, they had sparked transformation. Aliens who had once relied on machinery and technology alone now embraced skill, courage, and adaptability. They moved with awareness, acted decisively, and helped one another in ways that technology could not replace. Even the oldest counselors of the coalition were impressed. They had come with hesitation, unsure if they could trust these legendary Deathworlders. Now they watched with admiration as their people embraced a new way of thinking. The humans had shown them that courage, knowledge, and determination were more powerful than fear or disaster. In the heart of the northern cliffs, the final challenge awaited. Landslides and unstable terrain threatened a small village of survivors, trapped at the edge of the mountains. Alien engineers had calculated it impossible to rescue everyone safely. Yet the humans moved forward without hesitation. Using simple but ingenious tools, ropes, and levers, the humans created safe pathways down the cliffs. They guided the villagers carefully, stabilizing rocks and debris as they went. Aliens followed, learning the techniques, carrying those in need, and reinforcing the humans' efforts. One human lifted a massive stone, blocking a narrow path. Sweat poured from his brow, but his face remained calm. Another guided a frightened family down the improvised bridge. Every step was precise, every action deliberate, yet it all looked effortless. Talu watched in awe. "They make the impossible possible," he whispered. "Not with machines, but with skill, courage, and determination." By midday, the village was safe. Not a single life had been lost. The humans had faced the deadliest terrain on the planet and triumphed. The aliens, inspired by the example, had grown stronger, braver, and more capable than ever before. The rescued villagers gathered in a clearing, watching the humans and aliens work together. Gratitude and admiration filled the air. No words could capture the awe they felt. The humans had come from shadows, unafraid of death and chaos, and had turned disaster into salvation. Commander Talu addressed the gathered citizens and aliens. "These humans, Deathworlders, have shown us a lesson we will never forget. Courage is not the absence of fear. Strength is not the tools you hold. And hope is not given. It is created by action, by determination, and by the will to endure." The humans said nothing. They simply nodded, continuing their work quietly, allowing their actions to speak louder than any words. As the sun began to set, the planet's survivors gathered around a small hill. The humans stood with them, a living symbol of resilience and determination. Children approached, curious and fearless, touching the humans' rough clothing, asking questions, and learning by example. Adults whispered among themselves, realizing that the humans had not only saved their lives, they had taught them to survive, to act, and to endure. Talu stood beside them, feeling the full weight of what had occurred. "They came when we could, not hope," he said. "They showed us courage, ingenuity, and strength, and they leave us not just alive but stronger than we were before." One human knelt beside Talu. "We do not need thanks," he said. We do this because it must be done, because someone has to act, and because anyone can learn to face danger, if they are willing. Talu nodded, understanding fully. These were not just heroes. They were teachers, mentors, and catalysts for change. The Coalition would never forget the lessons of Varian 7. That night, as the stars shone above, the humans prepared to leave. Ships were loaded, supplies secured, and final instructions given. The aliens gathered to watch, feeling a mix of gratitude, admiration, and awe. Talu approached the human team leader. "Will you return?" he asked quietly. The human smiled faintly. "We come when we are needed, but we leave strength behind, and sometimes that is enough." As the ships lifted off, cutting through the calm skies, the aliens felt a profound sense of change. The humans had passed through the shadows of chaos and emerged as a guiding light. Varian 7 had been tested, and in the process, so had the Coalition. The lessons of the Deathworlders would echo across the galaxy. Courage in the face of danger, resilience in the midst of chaos, and the power of action over fear. The aliens had seen what it truly meant to survive and to thrive, even when the odds seemed impossible. In the days that followed, the Coalition rebuilt Varian 7 with renewed confidence. Buildings were reinforced, disaster protocols improved, and alien communities taught the skills learned from the humans. They moved with a confidence and awareness that had not existed before, knowing that courage and adaptability could overcome even the most extreme threats. And somewhere among the stars, the humans continued their journey, unafraid, unstoppable, and ready to answer the next call for help. They did not seek recognition, but their legacy was already imprinted on every life they touched. Commander Talu often walked through the recovering cities, observing the alien children practicing the techniques taught by the Deathworlders, engineers, reinforcing structures, and citizens moving with a newfound confidence. He knew that the humans had changed not just the planet, but the way his people thought about courage, resilience, and hope. In the Council of 10 Worlds, Talu recounted the events of Varian 7, describing the humans' actions, their methods, and their calm authority. The council listened in awe, realizing that a species once thought fragile had shown a depth of strength and courage unparalleled in their history. "They came from the shadows," Talu said, "and showed us light, not with words, but with action, not with power, but with courage. That is the legacy of the Deathworlders." Across the galaxy, stories spread of the humans who thrived in danger, saved countless lives, and taught others to do the same. They became legends not just of strength, but of hope. Varian 7 had been scarred by disaster, but it had emerged stronger, not just through rescue, but through the courage and lessons left by the Deathworlders. The aliens would never forget that. When danger seemed insurmountable, hope was not lost. Courage, skill, and determination could prevail, and sometimes the strongest allies came from worlds forged in the harshest shadows. And so, as the Deathworlders disappeared into the stars, the aliens of Varian 7 and the Coalition stood ready. They had been changed forever, inspired to face the impossible, to act without hesitation, and to survive with courage in the heart of chaos. The humans had come, saved lives, taught courage, and vanished like shadows. But their legacy shone brightly across the galaxy. Varian 7 would never forget, and neither would the stars.